Ok, hello, Đức Anh Nguyễn nha. Lỡ xem. Để xem các anh em. Xem giống tôi mà nhưng mà tôi không dùng yeah, tôi cũng thấy các anh em mới nhưng mà không có tài khoản Shopee. Thì ok, chào mọi người đến với buổi livestream tối nay nhá. Thì xem nào, tối nay có khi tối nay mình sẽ tiếp tục đến với Callisto Protocol nha. Hôm qua bị con quán nó nhai đầu rồi. Hôm nay phải làm lại. Quên mất là phải sử dụng cái gì nữa. Ừ. Thế đấy chứ hôm qua là mình còn quên mất cái âm thanh của game. Ok, chờ mình một chút, mình sẽ add cái tính game vào này. Đây, tôi đúng nói rồi đấy. Ok, mình phải chờ một chút. Thế mình phải lại report experience nhưng mà nó có một cái bản để mình nó có một cái bản bitmap rồi đấy. Gọi experimental features, đúng là dùng nó luôn. Được rồi, chúng ta sẽ tiếp tục nhé. Ok, tiếp tục nào. nãy hơi bận tí. Chúng ta quay lại nhé. Để người ta biết lần trước mình đã bị con em nhai đầu. Giờ mình sẽ phải đi
All response teams mobilize immediately. Warning.
nó có thấy mình không nhỉ? Mình né rồi mà, đúng rồi. Anh lúc có thể né rồi mà. Nó vẫn đánh cho mình. Nó không được một cái nữa. Mình nói hơi bé tí nhá. Có tí việc thì mình nói hơi bé tí.
Anomaly detected. All response teams mobilize immediately. Teams mobilize immediately. Anomaly detected.
tiến ở bên này xem. Sorry. Ừ. Ừ.
This new warden, I can't figure him out. He's made more changes in months than Black Iron's seen in decades. Still, whatever's going on could finally be my chance. I just gotta be ready.
Đó là chủ nhân Elias, cái người vẫn đã mình gặp.
Believing yourself. Anomaly detected. Warning. 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 All response teams mobilized.
I got you. I'm sending in Squad 9.
Sir, Squad 9 is gone.
Hold your position.
Kid, fall back. We've lost containment.
All right, then activate all tactical units. You are weapons free. Repeat, you are weapons free.
Yes, sir. But
You. How the fuck did you get in here?
Được rồi,
I got time for this shit!
tôi ra khu vực này.
Okay. Okay. Let me see if I got this straight.
Tôi không vấn đề nhé.
You crash here. And then this whole place goes to shit.
Đây đi xe máy bay đây.
Oh, 5, 2, 1. Look at me when I'm talking to
Nhà tù này
you. What'd you do?
thì tôi
Huh?
vẫn
You can tell me. Are you
21
different?
thì mà mặt
Are
nào
you
là
special?
Why'd the warden?
gia đình
I told you. This is my kingdom. It's all yours. Alas, true. So was Ferris.
What do you mean?
He was there. Those things killed him.
You're harder than I thought. Just keep going now. I found a safe room up ahead.
necessity to do what is required, to make the hard choices. As your new warden, I will do what is necessary. For you, for this storied institution, for the good of all mankind.
Thì lão lại nói là lão yêu xin vẫn cuộc sống tốt đẹp, làm với những hắn điều cần làm. Thì khó nha. Ở đây.
Jacob! Over here! Come on, man! Move your ass! Run!
You think that'll hold them?
Fucking hope so.
The hell are those things?
Doesn't matter. Look, you just gotta get out of here.
You said something about a plan.
Yeah. This way. Come on. What's keeping you? This'll come in handy though.
Một súng.
Take that over to the Reforger. You can use it to print a new weapon. Now, give me a minute to tap into the system.
Đã có một hướng dẫn mới.
Please make a selection. Option not available. Error.
Biết.
UJC Printing at your service. Stand by.
Cái này là vũ khí in 3D mọi người ạ. Nó thật sự là một cái vũ khí in 3D.
Okay, got it. If we're gonna get out of here, we need a ship, one that you can fly. Now, I found an inmate with the skills to hack the network and call one down from orbit. Bad news is they're in the shoe. Maximum security. Be fucking tough getting in there. Caught bothering you?
Yeah, ever since I got it.
Yeah, they can scramble your brains a little bit. Don't worry, you get used to it.
Yeah, you sure know a lot about this place.
Yeah, I've had nothing but time.
Okay, so what's next? The shoe? Can we just waltz our way in there?
I wish we could. It's not gonna be that easy, bro. Look, I've been here a long time. I've got privileges that you don't, so I'm gonna have to take you a different way. But I'll be your eyes and ears, and I'll guide you along.
Don't you leave me hanging.
I got you. Unless you know I'm a pilot.
Để mình thoát ra khỏi đây thì mình
I'll
sẽ
get that door for you.
để mình thoát khỏi đây mình sẽ cần phải kiếm một con tàu. Con tàu đấy nằm ở trong một vị trí gọi là cái vùng mà có bảo mật cao nhất. Và bây giờ mình đang trên hành trình đi tìm cái tàu đấy.
Seems like it's infecting them, turning them into those things. Take that elevator down to the next level, then follow the signs to reach medical. I'll be in touch.
Đứng xa và bắn vào trong xe. Nói là mình phải đánh con đấy. Còn game bây giờ là phải cho mình lựa chọn thứ hai là đi núp lùm để mà làm cái trò này. Tại sao nó hướng dẫn ngay từ đầu ấy nhỉ? Nó hơi buồn cười. Nó thật sự hơi buồn cười mọi người.
open it, you'll need to find security credentials. Look around for any dead guards nearby.
Found one.
Use your shiv to dig out their implant.
Wait, what?
You don't have a choice. It's the only way through that door.
Oh, what a mess.
You do what you gotta do in here.
Này cái chip đấy ở trong cơ thể của lính gác ấy. Vừa để mở cái cửa.
I didn't have a choice. Inmates were tearing through the block. I had to seal the door. Does anyone copy?
Yes, Officer Jane.
Warden Cole? Where are you?
In my tower. Watching.
What? Why? What's happening?
The end of a long journey.
lên được này.
This will be my final report from here. The tower renovations are nearly complete. And the program reactivated under the supervision of Dr. Mahler. And what do you hope to achieve? Results. After decades of
Sau này cô không người nữa.
don't you see? Evolution doesn't happen in the lab. It happens in the wild.
Thì đây là một phòng thí nghiệm bí mật. Một phòng thí nghiệm bí mật một. Rồi, đoạn sông này có lẽ là được nghiên cứu trong này. Nó bị phát tán ra. Có thể nó bị phát tán ra vì cái đó. Ngon, có đồ. Đây là phải học lên kia. Đánh nhau ở đấy.
I'm in medical.
Keep going to the back exit. I'll contact you there.
There's no room. Patients stacked in the hall. The first case came in an hour ago, and they just keep coming. We're losing control. We have to find Mahler. Where the hell is she?
Em không muốn xem tươi anh đâu. Rồi. Người
Found one of those gloves that Captain Ferris had.
That's a grip. Bastard guards love to use it on us inmates.
Yeah, I remember.
But it's good. It works on all sorts of things too. Go on, give it a go.
Will do.
em còn không khí nữa. Không thể làm đồ. Ok, chúng ta quay lại thôi. Người ta hướng dẫn mình cái gì ấy nhỉ? Vụ Outbreak vẫn còn một người nữa mình chưa biết này. Eric Jane này, Dr. Evan Hayes này. Thế là mình cũng còn đỡ một người ở trong ngành mà chưa biết. Thế là mình vẫn thế nào ấy nhỉ? Đây, Geography này. Press and hold the right mouse button. While holding down the mouse, roll the mouse wheel back. Tức là mình nắm vào đây. Ném. Đó giống Gravity Gun ở trong Half-Life. Ngon. Có đồ này thì nó cũng không quá khó khăn với mình. Đây là một thứ. Úi rồi, úi rồi, úi rồi. Đây, hình như đây là cơ quan của chúng nó mà người ta nghiên cứu ra được.
They didn't know what was going on. Something was infecting people right before the breakout.
Thứ gì đó đã nhiễm vào trong những người trong nghiên cứu này trước khi cái vụ breakout xảy ra. Chẳng là có chứ còn gì nữa. Đây rồi, grab enemy. Đúng rồi. Cái gì đây? Đúng rồi. Kéo rồi mà. Thằng này không kéo được à? Mình kéo thế rồi mà. Đấy, thế luôn chứ. Cái này nó không ấy được. Thường cái đó cũng có pin, thế nên là đâu, cái này có thể recharge over time, nhưng mà recharge nhanh hơn với một cục pin. Ok, ở đây
The choice is yours.
ngon, hơn 61. Còn lúc cho ta thấy lúc nhiều lo.
UJC printing for all your needs.
Này có lẽ sẽ tốt hơn.
Please operate responsibly. Having
Công
United
nghệ
Day.
3D đấy. Okay. Ngon, được một cái report xem game tại đây đi. Thế luôn kiểu after successfully blocking an enemy last attack later. No attack will direct and knock enemy down. Ok, đã hiểu. Nói chứ. Thế là game này mình chỉ có đánh nhau với quái chứ không có đánh nhau với có bao nhiêu ấy được. Không có nhiều, 86. Nhiều rất là nhiều. Để cái đi vào ở đấy thì nó nhiều lúc nó giật giật ấy. Ví dụ cái này đúng rồi.
Oh, God.
Không họa luôn.
Jacob! You made it! I'm gonna open up the the maintenance elevator. That'll get you up here, yeah?
Ôi, sẽ đeo dõi thứ không? Đây không có thứ gì thì ông. Tôi chỉ đang thế là đám lính ở đây bị treo bởi bởi bọn này đấy. Lính đây là bị treo bởi một bọn kiểu hội băng đảng ở trong này ấy.
Looks like it's busted.
Get inside. I can drive it from here.
You sure about that?
Gonna lower you down nice and easy.
Rồi.
Brakes don't look too good. Elias!
I'm trying. One of the motors shorted out when I transferred power.
Stop the cab! Stop it! Elias!
The system's not responding. You've got to do it
Okay.
manually.
Wait, what? How?
Just jam something into the brake.
Thôi,
Hurry!
đồ rồi.
Come on, you son of a bitch!
Jacob, you still with me?
Yeah, barely.
I need to figure out why this system's acting up. Reset the power down there and get to the other elevator. You're nearly here.
Another elevator. Can't wait.
Ôi giời ơi. Ao ra. Đây lên
What
đi.
the hell?
Sinh vật biến đổi ngày càng nhiều. Và đây hơi bất ngờ ấy. Cần một cái câu chuyện. Luôn đấy. Bọn này cứ chui rồi cầu thủ chui lên đấy. Thế nào các em kia đâu. Sao mà biết mình ở đây là nó chui ra nhỉ? Đây có một cái quạt. Kia đúng máu. Gì đâu đây? Ôi em chỉ muốn tìm cái nó thôi. À, tôi đi. Có một hai cái khác có thể dùng được rồi. Ở đây đúng rồi. Rồi. Rồi, 30. Đi xuống rồi thế nhưng mà leo lên. Ồ. rồi. Kéo được cái gì rồi. Cái lại kia để đây. Ô không cần cái lại kia có được may quá. Được sắp ở đây đi. Anh Elias ơi, anh đâu rồi anh ơi? Đừng nói là cái cuộc thang máy này anh lại làm học nữa nhé.
Look at the size of that thing. Elias,
Tiếp tục cái
I'm in
này.
the elevator. I see the shoe.
Chui này.
Elias, you there?
Ôi trời, anh Elias bị ấy rồi. Nó còn đến nó nhai đầu rồi chứ. Còn đi chú.
Elias, can you hear me?
Một là đứt sóng, hai là anh ấy đứt rồi. À đây rồi.
Sorry for
Mày
not
đó.
responding. This thing's found a way inside here. Really tearing up the place.
Can we still get to the shoe?
Yeah, but it's on emergency power, so I'll need to stay here and run a manual override. Don't worry. I can get you over there. I'm activating the gondola right now. It'll carry you across.
Gondola. Đúng. Anh bảo tôi lấy gondola ở đâu đây? Rồi còn cho hay là ý chắc là ý cho nên đấy là mình đi cái cầu đó, đây là cái cầu mình vừa mới đi mà. Đúng, đây là cái cầu mình vừa mới đi mà. Có một có một nhân vật khác đi cùng cảm giác là sẽ an toàn hơn đấy. Anh có sống là mình cảm giác mình đỡ cô đơn hơn hẳn từ cái khu vực này.
The choice is yours.
201. Rồi cái khả năng ổn định của súng.
Excellent choice. Cycle complete.
Thêm một là rồi còn thôi sẽ kiếm được là thêm calyx, kiếm thêm được credit thì mình sẽ chạy cái kia lấy cái đây. Đây đây con đô la là cái sang này, nó gọi là nhỏ nhìn theo cái cáp treo.
It's full of those things.
Ôi rồi ôi, ôi rồi ôi. Rồi, game nó lỗi luôn mà. Nó nói quá hay sao ấy, nó bị lag quá là lỗi luôn. Không rõ là lỗi tại sao nhưng mà thôi được rồi. Ờ, mình nghĩ là mình sẽ thế nào? Chúng ta có thể ngồi dịch về Blender. Bây giờ chiếu video lên thì không biết là có bị đánh bản quyền không nhỉ? Kiểu nó cũng sẽ hơi lạ ấy. Ok. Cảm ơn. Chúng ta có thể Valorant này chill cũng được. Ờ, đang có một game nữa free ở trên Steam à? Bây giờ mình bây giờ bật cái này lên thì hơi hơi lọ. Chắc là xem một cái video khác trên đấy thì nó sẽ không bị ấy đâu. Mình nghĩ là mình vẫn học Blender một chút. Có thể về sau biết đâu đấy mình có thể gọi là làm một cái gì đó hay hay chơi chơi kiểu kiểu thế. Ừ. Ừ. Chắc là chắc phải việc quay share cái màn luôn, ngồi học vừa lên đâu. Các trường hợp mà cái này cái đánh mặt thường thì chắc mình phải thì hơi phí, thì hơi phí thôi cứ liều đi. Tại vì thực
Now
ra
we
thì
know how Blender functions, let's start building that donut. So, as before, well, first of all, just to repeat, make sure you are working with a new scene. Completely new scene, don't want any remaining monkey heads lying around. Let's begin fresh slate, and let's delete our default cube, just with the delete key, and let's replace it with a new object. You might remember the hotkey for that is Shift A. And as I mentioned before, you usually want what is underneath mesh because these are your primitives. So we want to start with something that most resembles what it is we're building. You know, if it was a house, you might start with a cube. If it was a vase, you might start with a cylinder. In our case, we want the donut-shaped one, although mathematicians call it a torus for some reason. So let's add that. Now, if I zoom in by scrolling up, we can see we have something
Ừ. Ừ. Phim á, mình nghĩ là mình sẽ mình cũng đã thử. Ừ. Đây là một file ở đây vào nhóm này. Ok, mình nghĩ là mình sẽ kiểu trước tiên là luôn luôn làm thì mình sẽ thử theo hướng dẫn mình ra trước, xong rồi mình sẽ có thể mình lịch theo nhiều kiểu, tại vì là
resembling a donut. It looks like booked when they
nó
just
sẽ có
drop it
khá
into the
nhiều
vat, and it's
hướng.
just after you do down here in the bottom left, change the dimensions, and if you click that box, you see options. And look, we can change the dimensions of our torus. Now, something to note is that these options in Blender only appear immediately after you have done that action. If you do another action, like say deselect your torus by mistake, it's gone, right? Because Blender has assumed you have moved on, you've accepted the state of your donut, and this is the one you want, right? Now, if you haven't done anything drastic or changed this object in some severe way, you can temporarily bring it back by hitting F9. I never actually remember that hotkey. I just remember that immediately after I have added an object, if I want to tweak it, now's my chance before I move on to something else. Okay, so we could change, you know, the size of it here. We can also change the resolution. I'll use the term resolution loosely, to make it higher or lower fidelity. And a mistake that a lot of beginners make, and I say this because this was the exact mistake I made way back in 2003 when I started learning Blender, is they go, well, I need a realistic looking donut, so I guess I need to go really high resolution. I remember my first project, one of my first projects was for a high school film project, and I wanted to have a close-up of a face. Didn't realize faces were going to be difficult, but I went really high poly, and then it was just an absolute nightmare to work with. So the
Đây là có thể để cái mình set mình lên đến 145 và cái độ chân thực của nó sẽ rất là cao. Radius mình xuống. Ok, kiểu vậy. Ok.
problem, the reason you don't want this is that, for starters, things that are high poly are very slow to render, and they're very hard to work with if you want to tweak the shape of it. But also, as you learn and you grow with 3D, you'll discover that it is a lot easier to add resolution to something later on, but it is very difficult to take it away if you've already built it into it and you don't need it. So, long way to say, what we actually want is to have as few polys, these are called polys, as you can get away with. So I'm going to go with 32 major and 12 minor. And don't worry that it looks all jagged, because we will fix that in a moment. Now, the major and minor, this is really up to you, but I find that something that looks kind of chunky, like a fat donut, just looks really delicious. So I'm going with...
Nếu mà trong dẫn này mình không cần phải nó quá hai poly, thế nên mình sẽ để là 32 và 12.
something around about this size, okay? And once I'm happy with this, once I'm ready to click off, I click off, the options are gone, and this is it. This is the donut that I am now working with. So how do we make this look higher resolution, less jagged? Well, one way is to use smooth shading. So if you right click with your object selected, go to Shade Smooth. And look at that, this is immediately better. Shade Smooth. And look at that, this is immediately better. Without getting too technical, this is kind of a fakery. It's sort of like the shader is telling the renderer that this is a really high poly dense mesh when it really isn't. It's just basically kind of like averaging out faces. And anyway, it's very technical, but basically means it's not going to add anything to your render time, but it's going to look smoother. And so this is generally what you want for something that is smooth and organic looking like we want. If you were rendering like architectural or like hard surfaces, like later on we're going to put this on a counter, then the object would obviously want to be flat. But in our case, we're just going to use Shade Smooth. But you might notice that looking at this, especially if you go side on, that you've got this sort of jagged shape around here, right? So the silhouette is really breaking that illusion that this is a high poly or a smooth looking donut. But thankfully, rather than adding all of that complex density into the mesh itself and then making it hard to remove later on, there is another way through modifiers. So if we go over here to our properties, right, this very confusing, lots of option looking properties, click on the wrench, and this is the section called modifiers. And this is one of those object dependent things. So if you've got your camera selected, you won't see it. So it's only when you've got actual meshes that you might see this modifier here. So it's much easier to explain if we just add one. So up here, add modifier, and you've got a range of options here that can do a whole number of things. The one that we're looking for is underneath generate, and it is called subdivision surface.
If you're a web designer, here are 4 Wix Studio features you gotta know.
And it is a really common modifier that you use all the time. In fact, it's so common, it's actually, you can just immediately add it to any object just by hitting Control 1. But don't do that because we've already got it, so there. Now, some of you might have just discovered that your donut has disappeared. If that is the case, you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and then underneath Viewport, where it's got Subdivision at the very bottom, Disable GPU Subdivision. That will then make the subdivision perform on your CPU instead of your GPU, which is maybe non-existent or not performing whatever. But disable that and it should appear. But if it's already working for you, don't disable it. Keep it going because GPU will be faster. And it should maybe non-existent.
Ra thì cái này là không phải lắm. Okay.
Or not performing, don't disable it. Keep it going because GPU will be faster. So what exactly is this doing? Well, it's a lot easier to explain if we look at the shade flat mode because we're not being tricked by the smooth shading there. If I set this levels viewport to 0, this is our original mesh. This is before we add the subsurface essentially. When we increase this, you can see that it is adding resolution to our mesh. And the more I increase this viewport levels here, the finer and finer that detail becomes. So to explain it, because this is such a very, very common modifier, it's kind of important to understand how it's working. You can see that this is these squares here, these are called faces, by the way. And for each one of these faces here, as I add a level, you can see it's becoming 4 faces, right? And then now if I zoomed in on this one face here, if I do another level, that's now become 4 faces. And then if I zoom in again, it's now become 4 faces. So it's exponentially adding detail. And you might also know that it is smoothing it out as well. Like this jagged edge that we've got here, you can see now becomes smoother. So to quickly visualize that, if I just draw it, like imagine you've got like a 90-degree corner, right? Like this. If you add a subsurf modifier, what it's going to do is it's going to add a point here, right? Because this is the extra detail. It's also going to take that point there and it's going to average it out. It's going to average it out between these points. And it's going to create another one there and another one there. So you go then from having that really hard corner there to having something that looks a lot smoother. So it's going to take a point and it's also going to change it to make it look smoother, generally speaking. So there we go. So now as I increase this, you can see it's getting smoother and smoother. Now, the reason there are two options here, you've got levels viewport and levels render. So reminder, this gray area that we operate in is called our viewport. The render is the pretty version. So as an example, you could see if I just turned it off for the viewport, it looks very jagged. But then for my render, if I increase that to 3, if I do my render, which you could go up there, and render image, or remember the hotkey F12, you can see that that donut is now smooth, but I go back and you can see it's jagged. So the viewport, you want to generally keep it lightweight, and then the render time, that's where you want to get a really nice looking pretty image. So you want to often have 2 different levels. In our case though, I don't really think we need to go beyond 1, even for our final pretty image, because this with shade smoothing turned on is good enough. And we're going to be adding more to the scene later on, so we don't want to make it too complex. So this is actually pretty good. Okay, so we have a perfect donut, and that's the problem. It's too perfect. You could spend decades trying to develop a machine in the real world that made a donut this perfect, and you never would. This is so mathematically precise that the eye will always see this as looking fake. So that's actually a problem you learn pretty quickly in 3D, that things that are too perfect just look fake. So you have to spend time making things look misshapen and adding variation there like you see in the real world, because your eye expects to see it. So how do we do that? How do we make this donut look a little more lumpy and interesting? I do that by changing the mesh itself. So this mode that we are in right now, where we can click on different objects, is called object mode. And I know that because in the top left-hand corner, you can see we are in object mode. But if I click the drop down, you can see I get a number of other options here. And these options, again, will change depending on the object you've got selected. If I've got a lamp, my little light there selected, you can see I've only got object mode. My camera, I've only got object mode. But a mesh will give you extra options here.
Shaker AI is an SD model hub dedicated to the design and creative sectors, gathering over 50.
So let's enter into edit mode. Ooh. Right. Now, you can see our mesh, our object has become something that looks weird. It's got a bunch of little points on it with lines and very technical. Well, that's because this is actually what the mesh is made up of. These little points here, which you can click on just by selecting, are called your vertices. The singular term is called vertex. I never say that. I like to just call all of them vertices, regardless of whether it's 1 or 2, just because you always get some comments that go, actually, it's called vertex if it is singular. Anyway, so these are called your vertices, and if you have 2 of them joined by a line, that is called an edge, and if you have 4 of them forming a face, then it's called a face. So with these, I can quickly change the shape of my object by using the same hotkeys as before, and if I want to move this, then I would simply tap G, right? And you can see it's now attached to my cursor, and then if I want to confirm its movement, I just do a single left click, and there it is. Now if I go back into object mode, like that, you can see that my mesh has changed, okay? And by the way, the hotkey for jumping in and out of object and edit mode is just tab, okay? So you can see it's just toggling between those 2 modes because it's so common that you want to just quickly change things that it's just easily accessible by that. Now, this is okay, right? But you can see it's like, it's got like some artifacting. It's not the greatest lump, right? So how do we make it look a little more natural? Well, I mean, you could, you move one, drag it out, okay, click, and then I move, the next one next to it, right? I'll move that out, and then I'll move this one out a little bit, and then I move this one out. And it's like, okay, well now I've got the thing, but it took me like 5 actions. Ridiculous, right? No one wants to do that. No one's got time for that. Thankfully, there is a tool in Blender just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar. So if you enable that, now if I hit G and I move it out, you will see I get a little ring around my cursor there, and that is now changing the mesh around it. Now, a lot of people in my previous tutorials were like, I don't see what's going on. You have to have something selected first, and then when you hit G, you will see that little circle of influence. Okay, now this circle of influence, if I scroll up, you can see it's shrinking its circle of influence. And if I scroll down, it is expanding its influence. So it's only going to affect what is in that, that ring there, okay? If you are on, if you don't have a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can also change the influence by using page up and page down. And if you don't have page up or page down because you're on a Mac keyboard, then what you would have to do is go to key map and then change your page up and page down to something else just so that you could get around that. But guys, you got to get a mouse. Get a mouse with a scroll wheel. I think they're, I don't know, 50 cents or just in the nearest landfill somewhere. Get a mouse because it's going to make your life in 3D a lot easier. Okay, so with this, I can now make quick work of lumpy shapes, okay? So I just drag that out. Okay, I've got a little lumpy shape there. Maybe I go down here and I pull this up just by hitting G, moving it up. Okay, so already this is looking a little more natural, right? Because even if we were making a stylized world for a Pixar movie or something like that, you can't have just a spherical looking donut, round looking circular donut, because it just, your eye will see it as fake. So very quickly, I'm able to add a little bit of variation to the donut, just all around it, just a little bit over here. And you can see that I am just changing my circle of influence depending on what size of a lump I want to make. So I just want to make like a little bit that sticks out. I can make a small circle just by scrolling up like that. And you just want to do that until you get something that looks a little more natural. I might want to make the inner part as well. Maybe just drag that in with a smaller circle. And that's pretty good. Let's just have a look from the...
Remote Voices rồi chúng ta sẽ làm cái personal editing này. Yeah.
the top. I might actually just drag that out, make it a little bit more like that. But there you go. That's pretty good for a donut. It's still kind of simple. It's not too detailed, but it's got just enough variation in it that it's more interesting to look at. Oh, one more thing, forgot to mention. Go back into edit mode with tab. Donuts, when they're sitting in the little vat thing, right? They're only like half submerged, so then they have to be flipped. But it means that the bit that's nearest to the surface is getting less heat. So essentially what I'm saying is the bit that's around the donut, the circumference of it is usually a little bit flatter. So donuts aren't like perfectly round all the way around. They're usually a little bit flatter. So what I want to do is I want to select these vertices along here, and then I want to shrink them. Now I could go around one by one like this, which is actually what I used to do when I was learning Blender pre-YouTube days, and there was no tutorials. I would do this if I wanted to select this. Silly, because there's a function, a tool for that, and it is edge select. So if you hold down Alt on your keyboard and then do a single left click on not the points, but on the edge, right, this little line here, you can see it's selected all the way around. So it's anything that's connected along that line is now selected. So if I want to shrink this, right, what would I do? Well, I mean, yeah, you could like move it around, right? We want to shrink it. We want to change the scale of it. So we would use the hotkey S for scale. So S, and I'm going to scale that in. And I actually don't want proportional editing, so I'm going to turn that off and now scale in and just make it a little bit flatter. And there you go. See, it just feels a little bit more natural, doesn't it? Looks a little bit closer to what a donut looks like. And by the way, don't worry if yours doesn't look exactly like this, like your lump is a little bit off. Like some people get a little bit too precious with the tutorial. Like I gotta match exactly everything I do. Like I'm just working on the fly as well. So just make what you think looks good. Maybe you think this is not misshapen enough and you want to add more, go for it, because it might actually turn out better than what mine is. Now, before we move to the next part, how to save. How to save. Blender, very, very easy. You just go save as, and you just get one file. It's called .blend. Very literal.
Modeling the icing.
Did you guys know that Blender 4.0 had a change that makes it more realistic by default? Or that there's a new technology that is going to expand the uses for 3D exponentially? Well, you would if you were on my free newsletter called This Week in 3D. It's an email from me once a week with 3 to 5 things that I found interesting that week from the world of 3D. So sometimes I share a new tool that I found, a remarkable tutorial, a new Blender feature, a news story that affects the industry. So click the link in the description, enter your email address, and then you will stay up to date on the world of 3D. It's always free and it's always written by me. Now, on to the tutorial. Welcome back to the Donut Show, where we make sad little donuts that we cannot eat. This is where we finished up at the end of part 1. We've got our nice looking donut, and now we're going to make that icing, which looks complex, but is actually fairly simple. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to add an object, you go Shift A, right? And then you start with something that resembles what you're trying to create. But we already have something that resembles the exact shape we want to create. It's the donut, because we want the icing around the donut. So let's just reuse this information. So we can do that by duplicating the object. And if you don't know the hotkey for it, you could just go Object, and then you'd find it here where it says Shift D. So Shift D. Now, when you hit that, you are in a placement state, essentially. Like it's duplicated, and it's now saying, where do you want to place it? Now, in our case, and actually often, you don't actually want to change its placement. You want to duplicate it exactly where it was. So you can cancel the movement by hitting Escape or right-clicking. Now, when you do that, it looks like it's canceled the duplication, but you can see in your outliner, it has duplicated it. You've got 2 objects, but it's just in the exact same place, which is what we want. So first things first, we need to name them, or else we could get very confused very easily. So you can name an object by just double clicking it in the outliner and then just typing in the object. The other way you can name something, I'll just show you the second way. If you select the Taurus 0.001, that's your icing object. If you're in the 3D view, where your cursor, is over the 3D viewport, if you hit F2, that's another very quick way that you can name something without having to go up to the outliner to find your object. So without name something with the 3D viewport, if you hit F2, that's another very quick way that you can name something without having to go up to the outliner to find your object. So with our icing object selected, let's go into edit mode by hitting Tab. So we want the icing on the top, which means this bottom half of our mesh here is redundant. Don't need it. So we want to delete it. So if we just dragged over the bottom here, you can see it looks like we've selected the bottom half of our donut, but if you were to move around, you would see, oh, we haven't actually. It's only selected, annoyingly, what is facing the camera. Where there's a mesh, it's not gone through the mesh. A lot of users find this annoying. I agree. Sometimes it's seems like that would be the more default one that would make more sense, but anyway, don't want to argue. So if you want to select through a mesh, you can go up to here in your top navigation, toggle X-ray. If you turn that on, it's going to enable you to see through the mesh. And now, when I drag over it, you can see that I have selected all through the mesh as I move around it. By the way, you might find it like when you're in this state, it's kind of hard to select. Like it's easy to kind of accidentally select what is above it, and depending on what you've got at your end, that might have happened already. So another way to easily just look directly on the side-on of your donut is to just click one of these, like in your gizmo here, instead of just dragging around, just do a single click on either the green one or the red one, the X or the Y. And now we're in that state. You can see it's flattened it, so it's put you in orthographic mode. which actually you can toggle to at any time, just over there, which just makes it easier to just do a single, all the way through the mesh, select. All right, okay. All right, so we want to delete that. So just hit the delete key. You get an extra option here of what do you want to delete, edges, faces. You want the vertices, that's everything. And now we have, if we go back to object mode, and then let's turn off toggle X-ray as well. And you can see it's working. We got half the donut on top of itself. But as you move around, you can see you got some flickering. Now, this flickering happens, and it's actually a very common, it's actually a good warning sign to you as an artist, because it means you've got faces on top of faces, and the 3D software doesn't know which face it wants to render, right? So it's like sometimes saying it's the front face, no, the back face, the front face, and there's no understanding. Sometimes you can actually spot it in TV shows and like VFX or like low budget stuff. You can see something flickering in the background, and I'm like, ooh, there it is, Z fighting. That's what it's called, Z fighting, or Z fighting if you're not American. So what we want to do is we want to give thickness to our icing. So we can do that with a solidify modifier. So adding another modifier, make sure you've got your icing selected, not your donut. And then here where you've got add modifier, we're going to go generate. Now it's made it worse. It's actually added a thickness to our mesh there, but it's actually done it the wrong way. So it's with the normals. Yeah, what is it? It's trying to put the extra bit inside the donut. So we can change that by just changing the offset here in the solidifier settings. Just drag that all the way to 1. Some of you might have actually found that it was correct before, just depending on which way your normals were. If that's the case, keep it at -1, but everyone else keep it at 1. We just want to make sure it's actually outside. Okay. I also, let's just increase the thickness a little bit too. Let's go, yeah, 0.025, that looks pretty good. And great, we've got what looks like a yarmulke on our donut, a perfectly straight edge little hat for our donut. So let's make this look more like icing. So the edge is wavy all the way around. So to do this, this is where we get into the fancy, finger magic, because you're typing lots of keys. Anyway, go into edit mode, and we can see straight away that we can't see the mesh, and that's because the solidify modifier is obstructing our view. So these little boxes here, as I mentioned before, like this is to hide it from viewport. But if you want to just hide it from your edit mode, which is the state that we are in right now, the box next to it is the one that you uncheck, which means in object mode, when you're tabbed in object mode, you can still see it, but edit mode, it's it's temporarily hidden for you. So if I was to select one of these points here and move it down, you can see that it's working, but it would be, again, a lot of effort to go round and round and do these one by one. So we want to use that old familiar proportional fall off tool again. So proportional editing on, and now as I move it down, let's just lower the slider way down here, and then let's pull this down. Okay, now we'll find issues. If we move to the side here, we can see the first issue we've discovered is that this is separating from our mesh here. And that's not what icing does. When it dribbles down, it follows the shape of the donut all the way down. So what we want to do is snap, undo it a number of times, snap the vertices to our donut underneath it, right? So for that, we need to turn on snapping up here. Okay, now there are a number of ways to snap in Blender. The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor. Not helpful. But we want to snap it to the face. And now with face snapping enabled, if we move this down, we can see, let's just look here, that the bottom bit is snapping to the face. But as you might have seen, the top bits, the rest, this down to the face. Around, you can see it means the snap the vertex follows the shape of the donut all the way down. So what we want to do is snap, undo it a number of times, snap the vertices to our donut underneath it, right? So for that, we need to turn on snapping up here. Okay, now there are a number of ways to snap in Blender. The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor. Not helpful. But we want to snap it to the face. And now with face snapping enabled, if we move this down, we can see, let's just look here, that the bottom bit is snapping to the face, but as you might have seen, the top bits, the rest of essentially what is inside of our circle of influence with this proportional editing, that's not being affected. Only the little point that we had selected was affected. So that's not what we want either. Normally that would be enough, but in this particular case, we want to also snap individual elements too. And let's go face project. Now, when we pull this down, you should see that these are also no longer clipping through the donut. But still, we have issues. Why is that? Well, it is actually working correctly. We can see these are not going through the mesh. So why does it look like it is? The reason for that is that there's actually just not enough information here. So if we go side on, you can see, right, like we've got this point here, and then we've got another point down here, and then we've got this long stretch in between, right? So that means that this part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes that goes around like that is just not, there's nothing to snap it to, essentially. So what we need to do to fix this is just add more geometry. So these little vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier. Because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier. And the modifier currently is adding geometry, so let's just apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply. Now, if we, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed. But in edit mode, you should now see exponentially more faces because here, but in now, drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply it. We just click this little drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply. Now, if we, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed. But in edit mode, you should now see exponentially more faces because here, where there was, one face before, you can see there's now a lot more, right? 4x, okay, 4x. Okay, so now if we pull down, we should see it is snapping. And if we go into this mode, you can see that it's now conforming to the mesh in a much more snug way because there's information there for it to use. Now this shading artifact here that we can see, this don't worry about that, we'll fix that in just a moment. But I need to show, because I've shown you like 4 things that we need to enable for this to work. I got to show you one more because if I pull down and if I scroll up, you'll see something. Okay, if I was to click, we get this horrible problem here. And I've done this tutorial on enough, and enough people have hit this issue that I need to call it out specifically because it seems to be a big point that a lot of people just don't know where to go from. What's happened is if we use a what's it called, the circle of influence for our proportional editing, if that is so high, it's actually high enough to reach the mesh on the other side of the donut. And then because we've got snapping, it's now projecting that, snapping it to the front, which is creating this like something that's a nightmare to fix. In fact, it's easier just to start from scratch than to try to fix that. So if we want, sorry, there's a lot of noise. To fix this, we need to hide the part of the mesh that we don't want to be influenced by our proportional tool, right? So to do that, there is an easy way to do it. We can actually do it very precisely. So if with this middle bit of our donut here, if I just hold down Alt and then do a left click, as I mentioned before, that selects the ring, okay? And we could, we could do that all the way up, but actually there's a little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use control plus, control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So control plus will just like select the next vertice along a chain, roughly speaking. And you can see we can very quickly select all the parts of the mesh that we don't need, right? Very cool. By the way, if control plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something else, select more, less. You can also do it here. Anyways, to hide this part of the mesh, it's H. H for hide. So when you hide this part of the mesh, it's H. H for... Anyways, to hide this part of the mesh, it's H. H for hide. So when you're in this state, it looks as though it's been deleted. It's very... Sometimes you don't know where part of your mesh, and then you forgot that you've got hide turned on. If parts of your mesh are hidden and you want to bring it back, it's Alt-H. So H to hide and then Alt-H to bring it back. Or if you can't remember it for whatever reason, you can also find it. Okay, it's underneath mesh. There we go. Mesh. Reveal hidden or hide selected. Okay, so that's the other way. But you can get my keyboard shortcut. It's in the link. It's free. Just use that and then you won't forget a lot of these handy shortcuts. All right, so now finally, after all that, after 4 different ways of and problems to explain, we can now take part of this mesh and drag it down, and it will work correctly. Haha. So now we get to now finally be an artist and go like, what sort of, edge or what sort of icing do I want to make this look like? So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm hitting G to pull it down, and then I'm just single middle click, and then because my cursor is closest to the Z-axis, it's now snapping it to the Z-axis. So that's why I mentioned before that it's really handy. You don't have to think of the letter and type it in. You just go in the general direction you want to go, and then just tap the middle click of the, which is your scroll wheel, right? Middle click. It's such a weird button that you have to call it out. It's the scroll wheel button, because it's like no other application seems to use it besides scrolling. But Blender is like, no, we're going to use it for like 90% of the operations is going to be middle click. But anyways, as you can see, I'm not paying particularly too much attention to it, but I'm just making a wavy looking shape around it. You might also want to make some bits that go the opposite direction, right? And then maybe pull, so you've got like big shapes as well as medium shapes and some small shapes. Big, medium, small. It's the recipe for appealing design. Big, medium, and small details. But I digress. By the way, I should mention, if you're stuck, don't feel bad, because there was certainly a lot of finickiness going on with this donut here, and we're definitely in the steep part of that curve at the moment. Do make use of my Discord if you are stuck. I created it literally so that people could get instantaneous help. I don't have any other benefit for it, so it's there so that you can find help. Link is in the description, and there's like donut help chat room where you can post screenshots of your problem and then people can help each other out. So do make use of that. Now, our shading issue here, this darkened edge, is actually going to fix itself by fixing another issue. So it's a 2 birds, 1 solution kind of problem. This 90-degree edge here for this icing, not ideal. Everybody knows that a real icing would create like a rounded edge there, right? So we can fix that just by adding another subsurf modifier. Because you might remember I mentioned, like, yes, if you've got 3 vertices, it'll create like another vertex here and another vertex here, but it'll also like round it out. It'll pull this one back, so you end up with a rounded corner. So right here in your modifier stack, we're going to go add modifier, generate subdivision surface. Now, the order of these does matter, okay? You want your solidify at the top and the subdivision after it. So Blender works top to bottom, and it's important it's in this way because you want the extrusion to happen first, and then in order to round that edge, it has to happen as a secondary step. So solidify on top, subdivision underneath. Now, whilst we're here and we're looking at the close-up, nice little profile of this edge of this icing, another issue to call out, you can see it's got this this shape that goes around. Yes, so far so good, but then it goes up, and it's like, it would be better if it went around and then tucked in and touched the edge of it, because that would look more like real liquid would. So we can solve that by just changing one of the settings in the solidify modifier. It's not one of those things that you would figure out or know where it is. It's just over time you learn where some of these settings are. But essentially here, the edge data. So we want to change the edge data to say that before you do the solidify step, add a crease on the inner part right here. If we increase this all the way to 1, it now creates a sharpened edge. If we solidify where it is more like real liquid would. So we can solve that by just changing one of the settings in the solidify modify. It's not one of those things that you would figure out or know where it is. It's just over time you learn where some of these settings are. But essentially here, the edge data. So we want to change the edge data to say that before you do the solidify step, add a crease on the inner part right here. If we increase this all the way to 1, it now creates a sharpened edge just on that inner part there. So the rest of it is a smoothed edge, but the middle one, there's a crease, so it's making a sharp edge there. And it just gives it, it's just a little bit more realism. Just looks a little bit closer to what you would imagine real icing would do. Okay, now for the cool bit. All right, so if you look at reference of donuts, right, yes, you've got these little wavy bits, but where the icing is really liquidy, it'll often break off from this wave here, and it'll create a trail that goes down underneath the donut, right? It just sort of drips all the way down. Whoops, bumped the microphone. So we can do that, but not the way we were doing it before. If we just took one of these points and then like dragged it all the way down like that, there wouldn't be enough information there, right? You can see you just get this like stretched look, and it doesn't look great, okay? So essentially we need to give it more information, and we couldn't just do it by like adding more and more subdivision surfaces. We need to actually like break this shape here and create a new shape that goes down. So we need to extrude. So if I select this vertice and then the one next to it by holding down Shift, I don't think I mentioned it, but yeah, if you want to select two things at once, it's Shift select. Anyways, so if we select two vertices like that, we want to extrude it downward by hitting E. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this? So I'm going to move it down to, yeah, like about there where I want the trail to stop, and I'm just going to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape. See it, click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face that's completely separate to what we've got there currently. And what this means is if we go to object mode, you can see it's not just like continuing this form here, it's pulled it down, right? Which is exactly what we want. And in fact, I want it to go even further than that. So I'm going to select those two vertices, and I'm going to pull it down again, and then I'll do it again. And the reason I've done this 1, 2, 3 is that this detail here is important so that it conforms to the shape of the donut. Because if there's not enough, you're going to have that clipping issue that I showed you earlier. So that's pretty good. And now we're going to do it again. Originally in my earlier versions of the donut, I only did like one of these, but then I noticed that in the render, the final render, it's often the most interesting part of the donut. So now I'm thinking, yeah, just do it. Add more of that. So here, so wherever there's essentially like a big dip is what I'm looking for. Like where the liquid would sort of build up and then like the surface tension there would be just too much, and then it would break away. And it would go down underneath like that. And we'll do another one here, why not? Like that, and down, and down. And that's pretty good. Haha, lovely. So that concludes finally this heavy part of the tutorial. So if you're ready to watch the next part, hope you're not giving up. You can click there on the screen and I'll see you there.
chắc là mình giờ livestream để cho mọi người đã xem và mọi người buổi livestream tiếp theo